Thank you very much, and also thank you for the invitation. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be able at this point of the year, yeah, in the master's degree, which I also think is very important in our system and in teacher education in general. Yeah, I come from the University of Barcelona, but I need to say that I agree with them when they said that you made a good choice. Yeah, I think you did. Okay, today I'm going to share with you some experiences based on research where I have participated, yeah, related to reading with young learners. I'm going to show you the work that I have conducted over several years with colleagues from my university and other universities like la Universitat de Lleida, la Universitat de Vic. Okay, a few years ago, I read an interview in a newspaper by this professor from Harvard, and he specializes in education and inequality, and he was talking about a piece of research he had conducted about giving incentives to students who did not perform too well at school. Okay, and in New York, they took some schools and they offered money to children for their grades. So for every A they got, they received $25. Okay, we would never do this here. We couldn't, yeah. Okay, then in Dallas, yeah, they did something different. They gave $2 to students for every book they read. Okay, if I'm saying this, yeah, in a lecture on reading, you can guess what worked best. Okay, students in the first scheme did not improve their grades, but those who started reading and could choose what they read, yeah, did improve in reading and in other grades. Okay, so this is not a new discovery. We know that reading is good, yeah, to get better at reading, to write better, to become a better communicator, to develop thinking skills, critical thinking skills. Now let's turn to language learning. Let's turn to reading in a foreign language with children. Okay. Why am I showing this bathtub here? Yeah, I'm showing this because we know that children will benefit from reading, okay, from reading or from any other activity where he or she gets lots of input, yeah. And in this way, by getting lots of input, implicit learning mechanisms are activated. Okay, probably by learning English only through school, only through 3 hours a week, that is not sufficient to activate these implicit mechanisms. I'm going to show you an example where you will see the importance of input. In a recent publication by Cadierno and Muñoz, they tested students, children at the age of 7, they gave them a vocabulary test. Okay, that was at the beginning of their investigation. And we had a group of students, Catalan students, who had received approximately 400 years of instruction, hours. I was going to say, that sounds like too much. Okay. Okay, and then the other group they were comparing it with, yeah, was Danish students who were starting to learn English. They had not received any instruction in English yet. And they scored the same. Okay, that shows us, yeah, how important an immersion situation or a semi-immersion situation, how important for those Danish students all the English they could get, yeah, from the media, from television, that contributed a lot to their incidental learning. I don't like to compare Spanish or Catalan students with those from other countries because there are other factors, like the distance between the languages that come into play. Okay, so I'm not saying that we are not doing things right, yeah, but I like this example to show how important input is. Okay, so there are different ways, yeah, we can provide rich input to students, okay, additional sources of input. Clearly is a good one, okay. Learning through project work could be another one, okay, and giving students lots of reading, exposing them to lots of reading materials, yeah, is another possibility. And that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about extensive reading, okay. There are advocates, yeah, about, of extensive reading. Maybe you will learn about these names during this year, McAllister, Nation, but probably the first important book that was written on this topic is this one, Extensive Reading in Second Language Classrooms. And these authors also started a foundation on extensive reading. There is now a World Congress on this, yeah? So there's a lot of work being done on this area. We can describe extensive reading by saying that it's language, it promotes language learning through the reading of large amounts of books, okay? But how effective, yeah, is extensive reading, okay? We have some early investigations about extensive reading with children from the, a project called the Book Flat that was in the 80s, so that's very old. Yeah, we have also a reading experience from Canada. These were programs that lasted for 6 years, okay, and they showed that students improved in reading comprehension and in vocabulary, okay. Now, more recently, there has been a review article, an article that reviews many articles on extensive reading, following some criteria. And they also confirm that reading is a contribution to comprehension and to vocabulary. But they say that, I'm always talking about reading in a foreign language, in a second language. They say that the benefits of reading vary with age. Extensive reading is more beneficial with university students, and a little bit less beneficial with high school students, and a little less beneficial with junior high school students. But look, this review did not include any research on extensive reading with children, okay? Because there is little research in this area, and probably the research that has been done does not have the quality or did not have the quality to be included in this review. Okay, so we said we are going to do some research on this area, and that's what I'm going to show you. Before that, yeah, let me tell you that when we give a book to a child to read, we are exposing him to 3 sources of input: the illustrations, the text, and the audio, okay? And we know from a theory of multimedia that the way children and adults process these sources of input is the following. We have a visual working memory that will process all the visual text and the illustrations. And we have an independent working memory that will process the auditory information. And these 2 stores do not compete with each other, okay? So that means that if we ask students to read and listen simultaneously, we are not overloading them. Okay? So the studies that I'm going to show you are about not only reading, but reading while listening. Okay? Okay, there are different ways, yeah, that we could work on reading, on extensive reading. I'm going to focus on reading while listening, but there are other possibilities to promote extensive reading in schools, in primary schools, okay? Through, for example, L2 reading in pairs. There is now a company that gives, has a product where students read chapters of books and then decide where the plot needs to go, okay? And they vote, and then the company writes a new chapter. That's another way, yeah, of incentivizing students to read, okay? But I'm going to focus on reading while listening. And I'm going to tell you about two studies, yeah, that I have conducted. The first one is a comparison of reading while listening with regular instruction. Okay, this is where we will start from. Okay, I conducted this study with Dr. Muñoz from the University of Barcelona with the collaboration of Nina Spada. Okay, and in the handout, you have some information that we will need to go over this. Okay, we designed, yeah, a plan to have primary school students do lots of reading, and we based this plan on these principles, yeah. Our main motivation was providing students with rich input, and we thought we could do that with graded readers and also L1 children's books. And we wanted students to read by creating a context where they could have some autonomy, okay, so that students could feel comfortable even if they are different from each other, which they are. We had two questions in this study. We wanted to see the following. Will the intervention students, the students who do the reading while listening, learn as much as the students who do not, the control group, less or more? And what insights can we gain from these students who do reading while listening? Okay, so we had these two questions. One was about learning, and the other was about attitudes, okay? So let's look at this for a minute, okay? We worked with two public schools, grades 4th and 5th, okay? And the students who were reading while listening were doing this for 2 hours a week out of the 3 hours they had in their school every week. And this lasted for 1 school year. So that was 48 sessions in total. We are comparing an intervention group with a control group. The numbers are the number of students. Today I'm going to report on the results of one of these two schools, the students who were in 5th grade, okay? And we bought many books, okay, more than 200 books. And these books had the following features where it says reading materials. There was fiction and non-fiction, graded readers and storybooks. These were short books, yeah, between 100 and 200 words, and they were classified into 4 levels of difficulty. Okay, because we were working with 2 schools, in each class they started with 60 titles, and then the teachers gradually added books until February when they had like 100 books, and then we swapped books between the 2 schools, okay, and then they started again with 60 books, and they added books, yeah? So every day there were new books, or every week. The books were presented into baskets. Each basket had a different topic: the world, humor, animals. Okay, this is how we organized these sessions. First, students looked for the book that they wanted. Then they had to go and sit down, have a look at the illustrations, and then they had to spend 20 minutes reading while listening to the book they have chosen, yeah? Most books they read twice, okay? And sometimes if they took a short book, they took 2 books instead of 1, okay? And after reading, they had to complete some tasks. These were the tasks. They could choose between writing new sentences, writing a dialogue, writing a title, or making some observation about English, words that they learned, something that they had learned about the language. And these they could write in Catalan, okay? I don't know if you can see this well. No. Okay, so this child read a book called Hop on Hop, and the new title was Put the Foot, and the child copied the sentence from the book, don't sit on that, and he wrote this new sentence, don't sit here. Another original sentence one was a long, long song. The new one is a longer, very longer song. Okay, and this would be an example of about English, an observation about English. He wrote about English. La paraula spine, yeah, es pronuncia Spain, diferent de com s'escriu. Okay, and there were many observations like this, yeah, in this task. Okay, before we administered some tests by the end of the year, yeah, we observed the lessons, we talked to the teachers, and these were our first impressions. Our first impressions were that the sessions were running smoothly, even though the procedure was time-consuming, okay? Distributing the materials, choosing the books, yeah, that took time, okay? But in general, students were successful in understanding the books, in getting the general ideas. Sometimes they misinterpreted information. For example, sun could be understood like summer, okay? But usually there was some type of relationship. Okay, and we felt that especially for storybooks, which were a little bit more challenging, that the listening component was necessary, that those children couldn't have read those books without the support of the audio, okay? Another interesting thing is that students started talking about the books spontaneously, okay? When they were choosing the books, when they were writing down their tasks, yeah? And they recommended books to each other. Okay, in one of the schools, they set up a system whereby they could reserve the book they wanted to read next week, okay? But, yeah, because in the card they had to write whether the books were difficult or how difficult they were, there were only 10 students who frequently said they had understood the book fully. Okay, so students were not so good, probably, at picking the right books for their level, at least some students. Okay, and then there was lots of variability in what they did during the sessions. Yeah, we had some instructions, but then what happened in class was a little different. Okay, we told them to write the tasks after reading while listening, and some students were listening and reading and were writing at the same time. Some students read the books 3 times and not 2 times, okay? But I guess this is what happens in a real class. Yes, and we also noticed, yeah, that students did not like short books. They did not like to have to take 2 or 3 books to fill the 20 minutes, okay? Now, these are the results, okay? We tested students with the measures that are written down here, research instruments, okay? And the same thing happened for the 3 instruments that we had. The students in both groups, those who were doing reading while listening and those who were just in class with their teacher, going through the textbook and learning with the textbook, they all learned throughout the year, but, okay, their progress, the comparison between the 2 groups was not significant. That is, the students who were doing the reading did not learn more than the students who were with the teacher with the textbook. Okay, there was the same amount of learning. Okay. About attitudes. We asked them, how did you choose the books? Okay, and recommendations and browsing were what they did most often. And the more linguistic type of criteria, like the level of the book or the length of the book, this is what they used less, okay? So we can see how they were reading as if they were choosing books in their L1, not as a language exercise, okay? But something that they were doing for fun, in a way. And then when we ask them, how attentive were you while you were reading and listening? And you can see that most students, yeah, we would like to have this all the time in class, don't we? Okay, the post-reading tasks were not so successful, okay, but the reading while listening was something that they were concentrated, and you could see that when you observed classes, yeah, students were really intent. And then when we asked them, which sessions, the ones who were doing the reading, which sessions do you prefer? Doing the reading sessions or the textbook sessions? Yeah, because they had 1 hour a week of textbooks, and they preferred the reading sessions, as you can see here. Okay, probably the most interesting part is this one. We analyzed the task called About English, okay? And we classified what they wrote into 3 big groups. Those are students that, that wrote observations about the meaning of words. This was 47% of the entries they wrote. Then entries where students made connections between the written form, the orthography, and the pronunciation. This was 40%. Okay, so those students were really taking advantage of having listened and read the books at the same time. Okay, so conclusions from this first study. The impression that we got, yeah, is that students were very positive towards book reading, okay, and the teacher even told us that when there was a holiday, on a day where they had these sessions, students were disappointed, okay? And we also have evidence that students were noticing the auditory input, okay? They were paying attention to the listening part. But students in the intervention group progressed as much as the students in the control group. There was not more learning, okay? It was a little disappointing, yeah, on our part, but that was what we got, okay? Now, because we were not satisfied, yeah, a couple of years later, we started a second study, okay? And here we compared a group of students who were doing reading while listening with a group of students who were just doing reading, okay? And this study was done together with other researchers in our research group. And we started with similar principles to the first study. The most important difference is that we focused on graded readers only, okay? We excluded children's books, okay? Because in our experience, it had been difficult to find storybooks that were appropriate for this age group. And also there was a publication that compared storybooks with graded readers, and they concluded that storybooks were not as appropriate, okay, to learn vocabulary. Okay, so we concentrated on graded readers. Storybooks may be appropriate, some people are looking at me like this, may be appropriate when the teacher, okay, is there to explain the book, but maybe for independent reading, students need to learn easy texts, okay? That's what extended reading is about. Okay, our questions were similar to study one. We wanted to look at learning and we wanted to look at attitudes, okay? And let's have a look at the second column over here. We worked with 5th graders, and students were also spending 2 sessions a week on reading or reading while listening. This was a school that devoted 7 hours a week to English, okay? And I'm going to present you the results from this experience from October to February. So they had 18 sessions of reading, okay? And we had 3 groups, okay? The first group were doing reading while listening. The second group were doing reading only, RO. And the third group were just learning through the textbook and the teacher, okay? Because CLIL was something that was done in this school. They had 2 sessions a week of social science and history. We decided, we were brave, and we decided to have students read only non-fiction, okay? So we selected books from different publishers on titles that were compatible, yeah, similar to the topics that they dealt with in their CLIL sessions, okay? Another important difference here is that this time we didn't let students choose the book they read. This is very much against extensive reading, yeah? But in my research group, there are researchers who are very outcome-oriented, and we were interested in finding out how much vocabulary they learned. And if students read different books, you cannot measure that, okay? So for the sake of research, okay, they all read the same books, yeah, 21 books. All graded readers, all non-fiction, okay? The sessions went like this. They started with browsing the book, then they read and listened, depending on the group, to these books, okay? And then they completed 2 tasks, because students in the first study were not very happy with those tasks, yeah? We changed them. And this is what they had to do. They had to write a list of words that they wanted to learn or that they knew were new to them, and they had to write questions, yeah? After every 8 books that they read, we organized a contest with the questions that they had produced about the books. Okay, so for example, a wasp nest can have about multiple choice, okay? So they wrote multiple choice questions, true, false questions, open questions. Okay, these are the results, okay? You have the tests over here. There were a group of tests related to reading. We tested reading comprehension, reading while listening, and reading fluency. And unfortunately, we got the same results to the previous study, the same as the previous study, okay? They progressed, the 3 groups progressed, but no difference between the groups. We were crying, okay? We did not like this, yeah? We expected students who had read more to become better, but they didn't, okay? Then let's look at the vocabulary, yeah? We were happier here, okay? You can see here that the group that were not doing any reading, they improved, but they did not improve as much as the 2 groups that had been doing the reading. But there was no difference between the reading-only group and the reading while listening group. Okay, you can see that well in this graph. Okay, let's go to attitudes. We asked the students, would you continue with these sessions if you could decide? And we could see that students who had been doing reading while listening were more prone to continue with the sessions than those who had been doing reading only. And also through observations to these classes, it was noticeable, yeah, that the reading while listening groups worked much better. Okay, students in the reading while listening group, yeah, described these sessions using the headphones and the MP3s as divertit, diferent, chulo. I like this quote from this child. Instead of work, we are sort of reading books. Well, not reading, listening to something similar to books. Okay, so they were not reading and they were not reading books, yeah? But from interviews with the children, we could see that they found these sessions different, okay? And they liked them, okay? A child said, oh, these sessions remind me when I am in the car and I'm listening to music, yeah, during the weekends, yeah? They did not have to write as much. They liked it because it was different. And also they liked the intimacy that they had while they had the headphones. Another interesting thing we asked them, yeah, when you were reading the books, yeah, what were you paying more attention to? And we can see that the listening component was very important for most of the children, either because they were mostly listening more than reading, or because they were doing the 2 things simultaneously. So it's clear that listening for these children is important, okay, and they like it when combined with reading. And there were some children who said, we wouldn't like these sessions if it were not for the listening, because I don't like reading, but I like these sessions, okay? Okay, then we were curious, yeah, about these books, these non-fiction books, okay? Most of us associate extended reading with reading about stories, with fiction. Would students like non-fiction? And we can see here that they were not super positive, most of them, but it's not bad, okay? And the level of difficulty was fine. But here, at this point, we realized that if these children had been given the possibility of choosing the books, okay, probably this graph would have been very different. Because some children said, I didn't like the topic, or I already know about this topic because we've done this in class, or the audio is too slow, or there is too little text for those students who found these books too easy, okay? Okay, and then we also asked them in the interviews, what did you learn today? And they were not telling us, I learned lots of vocabulary, or I learned about the past tense, or no. They always told us things like, things that I didn't know, new things, and they were able to explain, what the books were about, as you can see in this example. And they often also made reference to misconceptions that they had that were clarified by reading the books, okay? And sometimes I ask them, okay, but did you learn any language? Did you learn anything about English? And sometimes the response was, again, about content. So these children were really reading to learn. They were reading for content, okay? Conclusions, okay? First of all, no difference between the reading while listening and the reading only groups for vocabulary. Okay, to the children's eyes, they learned content, from nonfiction, and most of them liked the reading materials, and would have liked them more, if they had had the choice. For me, maybe the most important thing, is that we confirmed once again that reading while listening derived considerable enjoyment, more enjoyment than reading only, okay? And that's what I have said. Now, I'm finishing. You must be very tired, Friday, 8, Okay, these children, after conducting all the studies and not getting the results we expected, or we would have liked, or I mean, we got some good results, but we would have liked them to learn more reading, okay? I said, okay, these children always have a book in their backpack because in the school of the second study, they had this book always with them, and when they had some free time, they took the book in L1, in Catalan or Spanish, and they started reading. And I asked them to write down the book that they were reading at the moment and how many pages that book had. Okay, and this is how long their books are on average, more than 300 pages. Okay, so these children, some of these children were reading Harry Potter. Okay, and for English, we were asking them to read books that were 15, 30 pages long that they could read in 10 minutes. So this made me realize that maybe graded readers are too short for these learners. That they are written in simplified English doesn't mean they need to be short. If we want students to activate implicit mechanisms for learning, probably these graded readers are not a good choice because there is not enough input. Okay, it seems to me like these graded readers that are on the market are more suitable for intensive reading, but not for extensive reading. Okay, research has shown us that for adults to learn from reading, they need to read 200,000 words a year. And our students in study 2 read 14,000 words. Okay, so we shouldn't be surprised they didn't learn more. They didn't have enough input, even though they were reading 19 books twice a day. twice a week. Okay, so I think that we need longer books, more input. Yeah, I think these students would be ready to read longer books. In fact, some students told us that they would like to read longer books with less illustration, with more text, okay? And if we had longer books, the management would be much easier, because if every time you finish a 10-page book, you need to stand up and take the time to choose another title, this is very time-consuming, yeah? Okay, so we are coming to an end, yeah? And I'd like to say that, well, we conducted all these experiments, yeah, in the context of the classroom, because this was research, okay? But after having conducted this research, what we think is that this type of reading while listening maybe should better be done outside regular instruction, maybe during lunchtime, at school, maybe at home, maybe when students are in their cars. We see that students are motivated towards reading while listening, so it makes us think that maybe they would be motivated to do this outside class, yeah? In fact, one student in an interview told me, I have an idea, yeah? We could read these books at home, okay? Okay, and to finish, yeah, I'd like to finish with a sentence and an illustration, yeah? In one of the Extensive Reading World Congresses, the subtitle was Extensive Reading, a Magic Carpet to Language Learning, okay? Our evidence, yeah, does not confirm this. Extensive reading with children is not a magic carpet, yeah? They learn vocabulary, but they we have not proved, we don't have evidence that they will learn lots of other things, at least with the tests that we have, yeah? Maybe if we had more fine-grained tests, we could identify these grains, but maybe the magic was in the interest that these students had for reading, okay, in English. It was the first time they read so many books, yeah, on a go, and they enjoyed and they learned. Okay, thank you very much.